How do you see a strong, healthy family environment impacting a child's overall well-being?
Oh, it's absolutely critical. Um, there's plenty of evidence out there to show that strong family environments are critical for children's development and well-being right from the get-go, right from day one. The child lives in a family, and the family lives in a community, and the community lives in a society. This is something people will have seen from Yuri Bronfenbrenner's work. The child is almost like a precious egg in a nest. And the nest has to be good and strong in order to protect that egg, if you like. So yeah, the family environment's critical. And there's lots of things you need. But with the recent work we've been doing with UNESCO, for instance, looked at family environments and home environments for child development, foundational learning, but also social emotional skills. And what we found was the house, the home, the actual bricks, the roof. There needs to be a quality home, a stable home for the family to live in and to build their lives in together. They need stability and security. Um, the materials in the home need to be good for the child. So you can't have damp and dangerous objects and all of these things. So sort of a safe home environment. And materials to stimulate the child, age appropriate sort of toys and games and books and all of that good stuff. But most importantly is the way the family works together, or for want of a better word, the interpersonal relationships, and primarily the love and protection felt in the home around the child, and the peace and calmness that comes from family stability and union amongst family members. That's really important. Having some of those doesn't mean you'll always have the others. You can have strong family relationships in times of trouble, difficult housing conditions, and you can have beautiful house and a lot of arguments. But really, it's important to recognize that in most cases, it's easier to do a parenting job. It's easier, it's better, it's a better condition for the child to grow up in if the material conditions are also there. Oh, it's absolutely critical. Um,
And what unique generational benefits do you think can arise from this love and protection and calmness in a supportive home?
oh, uh, that's it's a great question, and it's so many things sort of crowded my mind to try and come out. Intergenerational benefits. Well, um, all of the I personally believe that all of the good stuff in life comes from connections with others and with oneself, right? Well-being defined as connectedness with self, others, and the environment. Um, that's where we get an awful lot of life satisfaction. That's where we get an awful lot of good knowledge and support, is being able to connect with one another. And connecting intergenerationally is incredibly important, because this is where so many life lessons come from. So in terms of sort of appreciating what's out there in society and in your community, and being a constructive and positive contribution to the world, is learned within that intergenerational environment in the home. Then, of course, there's the intergenerational care and support. Not just what people have and know and what they pass on, but the balance within a family in terms of being able to work and being able to care, and the sort of the intergenerational benefits in if I'm getting this right in a home where perhaps you have um, grandparents as well as children. There's an opportunity there for bonding and care between generations, which is would certainly help the family and help work sort of work family balance or just family balance in general. Actually, it's not always about work. Um, so those are things I would think primarily would benefit. I mean, in terms of intergenerational sort of relationships.
Thank you, Dominic. And we often speak about this lack of supportive public policies for family, which in turn increases pressure on parents. How does this absence of family-centered public policies increase pressure on mothers?
Oh, it's really incredible that today we live in a world where there's no country that treats men and women the same, mothers and fathers the same. But in the way it chooses to manage its public policies, some countries are heading in that direction, trying to balance out their parental leave. But we lack the incentives for men to do the work at home or to take the leave off work. And change is really required in public policy. Again, I'm going to say from the in the prenatal period onwards, or even before people decide to have a family. The burden is primarily on mothers in many ways because of public policy. Imagine a man and a woman before any children are born are going for a job interview and they have the identical skills and abilities and qualifications. The one employer looking at these two people might see the additional cost that might be held in the woman's work over time because of the longer leave entitlements that she has compared to the man. And that's a public policy choice. That's a difference which is created by the decision makers who design our public policies. Now, I'm not saying that women should have less time off when a child is born. I actually think men and women should have the same amount of time, and it should be a lot longer. I would like to see a year's parental leave, and both men and women having identical leave rights, starting at least a month before a child is born, and all the good stuff like, the job swaps in case the mother's working in a dangerous work environment, for instance. All of that stuff should be there. And it should be there because public policies could do a lot more for families and children, and strong families are our greatest public good, right? So I think we generally underinvest in that part of the life course. But it's not just that. I mean, the way childcare centres are managed, they need to be flexible to the working hours of both parents. The drop-off and pick-up times for something as simple as that, where there's provision of meals in the care environment, in the school environment, because you know who will be doing the packed lunches if you have to put them together. I mean, this is because of traditional gender roles, which we're still dragging on into this generation of families. Any additional care burden or work around a care option or a policy tends to fall on the mother. There's good examples and conditional cash transfers and things too, where it's the mother's job to take the child to the doctors for the injections or whatever else it might be. the vaccinations. What this really does to the difference between gender differences, but also between parenting roles, is it establishes a small gap in who can access the labour market and who takes on the care roles, not just right at that point in time, but over time. And a small gap in your career path over time becomes a larger gap. You don't take advantage of the opportunities along the way. And people might refer to it as something like scarring on your career path. In different ways. I wish I could think of a better way to describe it. But that little stop isn't just a cost for that moment around when the child is being cared for, the infant is being cared for. That additional break from the labour market creates a long-term cost because it's a break in the trajectory of the employment of the mother. And public policy contributes to those breaks. It doesn't encourage men to take leave. Doesn't encourage employers to encourage their male workers to take leave. There's the costs come in, and as I say, there's others with childcare or conditional cash transfers, or they tend to take it for granted that the family will chip in its part in sort of the care burden, which the family should, but it doesn't do anything to ensure that this is a gender equal contribution. And it's also bad for the child and the father, because there's fathers everywhere, including I'm a father. You don't want to be the guy who just goes to work and comes back and miss out on all the good stuff. You don't want to do that. So we could do a lot better in gender balance in public policy. And like right now, as I say, I couldn't point to a single country in the world that has really both got the design and the implementation in a gender responsive family policy correct.
Moving on now to the stress and worries that mothers experience when supporting their families, we often find in families facing poverty that a mother's mental state can be burdened by worry and stress. This can significantly impact her children and family because her struggles are often internalized. What impact do you think this has on children's opportunities for growth and well-being?
This is um, a real challenge, particularly for younger children who have more time, let's say, with mothers and fathers in the preschool period. This is really connected to what we were just talking about. So I defined happiness earlier as not happiness, sorry, well-being as connectedness with oneself, others, and the environment. And to be connected with oneself, it's important to feel that you're able to do the things that have meaning for you, and you have control over those things. This is having agency in meaningful purpose, if you like. This is eudaimonia well-being. It's how Aristotle would think about it all those years ago. It's a really old concept that if you wake up in your, one day and you don't have a control over what you're going to do, or you don't want to do what you're going to do, you feel you should be doing something else, contributing something else, how are you going to feel? how's that day going to be for you? It's not going to be optimal well-being, is it? It's going to be some sort of compromise in your happiness and your um, compromise on your happiness and compromise in your well-being. And it's okay sometimes, of course. I'm not suggesting everyone should do what they want all the time. Um, Obviously, we compromise together. We do time to time, but you don't want to be locked into a situation where you're out of control or doing things that you don't want to do. Now, why this really matters for what we just talked about in public policy is that these big influences on time and money and gendered roles can lock mothers in to long-term compromises, uh, to taking on more of the burden of care, being away from their work, um, not seeing so much of their friends, whatever it might be. This is the time when deeper reflection on the condition of your existence and the purpose of your existence comes in, and the risk to depression, anxiety, starting with rumination, can generate mental health challenges. Obviously, there's more than that. There's a whole lot of other reasons that can generate mental health challenges, including sort of shocks to the household, and people's sort of physical health and whatnot. But I do think that this sense of the stress, the anxiety, and the depression for some mothers could be avoided if we had better family policies. Right now, having said all of that, when a mother is experiencing stress or depression when caring for an infant, this creates all sorts of problems for the mother, the relationship with the child or the infant, and that when that relationship begins to become difficult, the value in everything that the mother provides for the child, the love and the care, but also how she unlocks the materials around the household, shows the child how to play or how to read or whatever it might be. That's also a risk of being lost, right? So the mother's unwell independently. That's a concern and needs to be dealt with. The conditions of the household, the child's growth and interaction and development are also at risk. Doesn't mean it always happens. It's not, but at risk is probably the best way to describe it. I think anybody who's experienced any bout of depression understands what I mean about interpersonal relationships, self-care, care around the house, etc. Pretty disturbingly, however, there's an additional thing that we need to talk about. So not just that happy home environment, the love, the materials, all of that weakens. So even if you have it can weaken. But the evidence in some literature, particularly the work in the United States that we reviewed for the UNESCO study I talked about earlier, showed that children can pick up these cues of mental health challenges, and they themselves can begin to develop mental health challenges. Because we're empathetic beings, children particularly, both boys and girls in the preschool period, are empathetic both cognitively and affectively. And that means they soak up, they don't just recognize that something's not right, they feel it. And that's pretty damaging.
And what role, building on this, what role do you think further investment into maternal mental health could play in breaking this cycle, but also breaking this transmission of these mental health issues onto children?
Well, I'm glad I talked about public policy first because I think that we could do a lot more to prevent concerns of the mental health challenges experienced by mothers. Um, and I think the public policy that sort of meets more of our ambitions in terms of providing conditions of adequate, stable, gender equal conditions in which children are raised would prevent a lot of this concern about mental health, particularly the onset of things like anxiety and depression. And I think it would also be beneficial for fathers too. Um, you don't want to be raising an infant out, undertaking full-time care and thinking, I'm giving up so much to do this, and it's all on me. You don't want that. So the public policies can sort of help lower the burden immediately. In cases where the mother's already experiencing mental health challenges, or it's really critical that she is given the support to address them. And no, I can't tell you exactly how because I'm not qualified to say. But I could tell you a little bit about how we might help identify cases that need intervention. And that might be done through home visitors, and I think it already is in many cases. It might be done through family centres. It might be something that's checked with the GP. It might be something that is checked at the childcare centre. Are all opportunities for the mother to interface with a professional and say what she needs to say about her state, mental health and well-being. And there needs to be the money and the support for it, amongst many other things, and the capacity in the social service workforce to not only identify, but then convey that information to the people who need to work with the mother, and then for the social service workforce to coordinate in such a way that it engages with that challenge sensitively. So the mother doesn't appear and say, I need some support with my mental health, and then has to go and tell the same story to the next professional, and then the same story to the next professional because she has mental health needs. And doing things like that are not conducive to improve mental health. So what I'm saying is that the services need to be designed in such a way that they're caring and they're attuned to people who have mental health needs. So if we go back to whether governments, so society should be investing in supports for mothers' mental health, the answer is absolutely. I'm conscious that we don't rush into investing or planning systems of welfare that just treat social ills, though. We have to build systems of welfare that prevent social ills and then have the capacity to treat the social ills that are unavoidable. There will always be people with mental health needs. But right now, I believe there's more people than there need to be because of the way we design our family policies. So the government needs to support it. and I expect it will be more expensive in the coming decade than it will be in the following decade if we make the changes we need to make to family policies. So yeah, it's part of a bigger picture, and I think you heard me say that I believe that we should recognize the value of strong families in societies, both social and human and economic development. And that means I think we could put more money into it. 2.6% of GDP right now, family policies in the average high-income country. I'm not sure that 2.6% of everything that we have is enough. I think we could do more.
You've mentioned in a previous conversation that we've had that these programs essentially pay families to be poor. Could you possibly elaborate on what you mean by this term, pay families to be poor?
Sure. Thanks, Antonia. Um, I want to try and express with those words quite quickly the idea that systems, public policies for families can trap people in poverty and trap people in disadvantage. And the way that they do that is they provide money, but not opportunity. And this means that you're bringing money into the household. If you're already poor, you don't have savings, you don't have materials, you don't have food. That money disappears immediately. It all goes on the things you need right now. And you're right back at the beginning. Everything, the need and the demand for the food, for the kids' clothes, for the toys, and etc. As a child grows, particularly in the early years, because the sort of development trajectory and the age-appropriate sort of toys and books and shoes and that doesn't stop. So you need more money immediately, and that gets consumed. And we need really to think about building policy conditions where we're not just paying families to be poor and go through cycles of poverty where you give me money and I immediately spend it, or in England we would call it a hand-to-mouth process. I've got it, it's gone. I've got it, it's gone. We need to build systems where some of that investment in families sticks and it strengthens and it builds families, and that's done primarily through human services that allow families to engage with the labor market, to engage with the community, civil society, whatever it might be, to invest in the long term instead of the short term, to pay for durable goods instead of paying for goods that are cheap and that will just need to make do with. So that's what I kind of meant by paying to be poor. And you'll see lots of literature if you dig into things on the poverty trap or the welfare trap. You use those terms on Google Scholar. You can have a read around the design of policies which keep people in low income conditions that actually remove work incentives instead of create work incentives. Though, just a little caveat here. Work has to be good quality, family friendly, sustainable, well paid, those types of things. That's good. People like to work when all of those conditions are in place, not just any old work, which is part of the problem we're having right now in society. The system isn't designed to sort of, I talked earlier about well-being and talked about the sense of purpose, meaning, and agency. Our systems of family policy don't drive purpose, meaning, and agency. They don't, not for everybody, which is really what we need to do. So that's part of this big shift. We were to pick some big shifts in family policy right now. It would be family policy which prevents social ills, family policy which is gender equitable and gender transformative, and family policies which promote well-being and build rather than just serve social problems. I really feel that we'll look back on this time in family policy. Next generations will come along and they'll figure it out. And they'll say, this is not how it should be done. And they'll look back at us and think, why didn't they just change it?
Just as a final thought, do you have anything or a key message that you would want to leave with our viewers?
Um, yeah, I do. I do. And I know that there's something we've talked about before, and I think it's really important. It's all in this well-being environment, this sort of promoting and strengthening families. There's all of the things I've been talking about. I want family policies to achieve good things, and I know that people want them to do that too, but inadvertently, a lot of what we're doing isn't doing that properly or not doing it for everybody. And amongst those things, we want to talk about what a family needs. And we've talked a bit about what the family doesn't need, mental health challenges, poverty. We've talked a little bit about what it needs the family needs for child development. And we talked about things. What we didn't talk about is emotions and connections are deeper than, sort of the sort of passing on of learning and cultures and traditions and whatnot. We didn't talk about love, which I need to say that's the primary thing that keeps families together, and really incentivizes that bonding and growing jointly, but in itself has so many implicit values. I mean, it's just everything. So I think that's what we as human beings seek. And you get so much of that from your family. And it's so valuable to the family in terms of strengthening the family that we can't ignore it or pretend it's not there or think it's too soft or too immeasurable to work with. So maybe we should be thinking more about that. And actually, it's a good message actually for society as a whole. We need to be kinder to each other. And we learn that, we protect that in the family through sort of creating the environment that supports and strengthens the bonds of love and protection and family strength.
Thank you so much, Dominic. And thank you again for all of your contributions today. We are done.
Hooray! Thank you.
Great.